Hi, in this video, I will show you how to get the state of an EC2 instance, how to stop the EC2 instance if it is running, and how to start it if it is stopped using AWS CLI and bash script function and if statements. The first thing that we need to do is to get the instance ID. So I'm going to copy the instance ID and I'm going to open a notepad and put the instance ID in a notepad. So I get the instance ID. I also need to open the open the browser for AWS where I will get the AWS. If you don't know where to get it, just click on AWS EC2, or let's say AWS EC2 stop EC2 AWS stop instance. CLI documentation. So this will show us the stop instance AWS CLI documentation. Open the CLI because we are going to be referencing the documentation to copy the command line that we need. Also, I want to open I need to create a script. So I'm going to sign into a server. So I have a Linux server that already have, so I've connected to the Linux server. So on this Linux server, I'm going to create a shell script file. So I'm going to call the shell scripts. I'm going to call it EC2 instance.sh. So this, to create the file, I'm going to do touch EC2 instance.sh. Once I touch this file, so the command, if you do ll, then the name of the file is going to give you the permissions on this file. As you can see that the permissions on this file is, it doesn't have execute. For this is the permission for the user is rw dash, meaning that the owner of this file, which is the EC2 user, can read and can write, but it cannot execute the file. To use a file for an bash script, it needs execution rights. So to hide an execution right, you just need to do change mode. Then you specify the user. User is normally specified with U plus execution right, which is X. Then specify the name of the file, which is EC2 instance.sh. So once I specify this, if I press enter, so now I have changed the file permission. So let's see if the file permission has successfully changed. You can do ll, then write the file again. So as you can see, the file permission has changed and the color of the file too has changed to script file. So now we have a file, we have a shell script file, and we also have the instance ID. Those are the two things that we need. Now, the next thing to do is to open this file and let's start writing our code, this command. So here we need three things. The first thing you need to do to make this, to write a shell script, you need to put the shebang sign or the shebang, which is pound !bin/bash. Now that I have this shebang, so I'm going to have three different functions. The first function is the function that we get the instance state of the instance that we want to be able to stop and start. We need to be able to get the instance state. So I'm going to write a function this is a comment. Function to get the instance state. Then I also need another function. This second function is going to be function to stop the instance. So this function is going to run. If the instance is running, then it will stop the instance. And we need another function. So this function to start the instance. So these are the three functions that we need. The first function will get the instance state, and the second function is going to stop the instance, while the third function is to start the instance if it is stopped. Now, before I start writing the function, I need to bring my instance ID in this file. So to bring the instance ID, I'm going to represent it with a variable called instance ID is equal to. So let me go to the notepad and copy the instance ID and paste it here. So now I have my instance ID. So the next thing now is to start writing the function. So the function to get the instance state is going to be get instance state. Then when you want to write a function, you have to put a parenthesis, open and close parenthesis in front, and the code for the function is going to be inside the parenthesis. So I'm going to put the parenthesis for the code for the function here. So the function, the command to get the state of an instance, to get the state of an EC2 instance is going to be, you need to first get the EC2 instance itself. So to get the EC2 instance itself, we need to run AWS EC2 describe instances. Then we need to put the dash. This command here, it will get the instance, it will describe the instance, but we do not need all of the instance. We get all the instance in the AWS account, but we don't need all the instance in this AWS account. We need just specific instance. We need just specific instance, and I'm going to put that dash instance, and this is going to end with IDS. So this is to specify the instance ID. And once this flag will specify that, oh, I want to input an instance ID. So the next thing to put is the value of the instance. So the value of the instance, I can call the value of the instance directly by calling the variable, which is called instance underscore ID. So to get that, you put the $ in front of it. So this will get us the value of the instance. And the best way to do all this is by any line of command that you do, you need to test it to ensure that you're actually getting values back. So if I want to get the value, so let's first test this. I'm going to save this and I'm going to test it. So if you this command will just get us it will get us an EC2 instance, a specific EC2 instance, the instance that is saved in this ID. It will get us the instance using the instance ID that we provide. So let's first run this. Let's test this whether this will actually get us the instance details. Then once we have the instance details, we can now limit the information that we get by querying what we need specifically. So I'm going to call the function. Whenever you create a function, you need to call it. And to call the function, just write the name of the function. Just write the name of the function like this, the underscore state. So the name of my function is get instance state, and that is all I need. So I'm going to save this file, press escape, then save the file. So to run this file, you can run it with sh, then the name of the file. The name of the file is check instance. Let me get ls. So the name of the file is EC2 EC2 instance. So I'm going to do sh EC2 instance dot sh EC2 instance dot sh, or you can run it with dot slash EC2 instance. Both of them will work. So if I press this, now you can see that it's actually getting us the information about that specific instance. But we don't need all of this information. We just want to be able to determine or be able to know that whether this EC2 instance is running or not. So we're going to query this information, all of this information we have here. We are going to query it, and the only thing that we need is this here, running. So we want to know whether the EC2 instance is running. If it is running, we want to stop it. If it is not running, we want to start it. So now that we are able to detect, oh, this is if we can get the information from here. So we just need to query this information. So to query the information, you can see that the whole information is inside a reservation. So I'm going to copy this reservation. I'm going to open my notepad. I'm going to put the reservation here. And if you want to query everything inside, you can see that the reservation is the code is inside a list, which is called an array in some other function. So what I need to do is that to get all the information inside the list, I'll just need to put the list column back and put asterisk. So this is saying that I want to query every details inside these reservations, and then I need to append it, because if you are getting something from an object, because this is an object, or some people will call it a dictionary, then you need to use dots for a nested information, information. So now that I have the variable, so the next thing to do is that, because I want to get information about the instance, and you can also see the instance here. So to also put the instance, I need to do column. I first need to put the instance ID. This is the instance. So I need to put the instance. Then I also want to query the whole of the instance. Now, the next thing to do after I get a specific instance, this is going to get the specific instance. And once you get that specific instance, I want to get the state dot name. And you can see the state here. If you scroll down, you will see this is the state. It's capital letter or uppercase. So I'm going to get the state, and the state, inside the state, the state has code and name, but what I actually need, I don't need the code, I just need the name. So I'm going to do state dot name. So all of these parameters, I'm going to copy it, go back to my script. I have to close this. So go back to the script and append the command that we created from in the notepad, append it to this information here. So what we're going to say is that we want to query dash query. We want to query whatever we are getting back from here. We want to query it using this information. So once we query it using this information, then we can tell it to give us the results, which is dash output that it should give us the results in a text. So that dash output text. So what this command is say, hey, we want to query the EC2 instance using this particular ID. We provide the ID here in a variable. And once you give us all of the information about that EC2, we want to query it further and want to get this information specifically. And once you give us this information, you should provide the information for us in a text format. So if you save this again, If we save this again and run it, like let's run it again. So we should be able to get whether the EC2 is running. Okay, you said we have an issue, we have an error, we can debug that. So you said the invalid text, maybe you meant text. Okay, so let's go and see. I think there is a little bit error there. So what I will do, because you can, as you can see that this line is too long, I can break it down into pieces or into separate ones, so that, so to break it down, just put a backslash here, put a backslash, give it a space, press enter, then go to the next place that you want to break it up. I want to break it up here too. I'm going to give it a space, press space, and press enter. Then go to the last one. So you can see that there is a hashtag there. So that is why the code will not run. So I'm going to give it a space too, then press enter. So this was not supposed to be there. So because it was too long, that's why you couldn't see this when we ran it earlier. So now that we've corrected this, I'm going to save this again and clear my screen, then run it again. So to run it, just do sh, then the name of the script. So this, if this work fine, or we still have the same issue, you say, okay, unknown ID. So it's not accepting that breakdown that we did. So all we can do now is to remove the breakdown. Let's remove the breakdown. It's not accepting the breakdown. So we can just go back. Press enter. Then we can go back. It doesn't like it, but let's just be, so all we just need to do is just to make sure that we don't we type all the commands that we need, and we didn't accidentally put any other character that we don't want. So the code is fine like this. So all I just need to do, save this again, then run it. Let me clear the screen before I run this code. So if I run it now, so if, okay, now it's actually giving us the results. So you can see now that it's showing running. So that means that the instance that we are getting the information about, the instance is running. So now that we have a code to get, we have a function to get the information about the instance, whether it is running or not. The next thing to do is to stop the instance if it is running. So we need to go back to the file, and we need to write the second function. This is the second function here. Let me give this one some space here. So we need to write the second function, and the second function, to write the second function, I need to pass the result of the first function in another variable. So to pass the result of the first function in another variable, all I just need to do is to say instance state is equal to colon, close the bracket. So whatever this function gave us, we are calling this function here. And to call the function, we call the function here, and we want whatever the function gave us, we want to get that information, and we want to save it inside this variable. So this variable now, let's call it, instead of calling it instance state, let's call it the current instance state. So that tells us that is the current instance state of the instance, the current state of the instance. So now that we've gotten that information, so to stop the instance if it is currently running, we need to write another function called stop instance. So put the information in front, they give it a space. Please don't forget to add a space here when we did our 7 days Linux training. On the last day, we encountered issue, and the cause of that was because there was no space in between our function here and the parentheses. So always don't forget to put that space there. So now that we have the function defined, now we need to put the command for that function. The command for the function will run AWS EC2 stop instances. So this command will stop the instances. If you want to get the command, you will go to the AWS EC2 CLI. You look for AWS EC2 instance. Stop instance. If you go under alphabetically under S, you will see stop instance. This is start instance and this is stop instance. If you click on it, it's going to give you some parameters. You can see the stop instances. So to run this stop instance, you will say AWS EC2 stop instance. Then you can add any of these synoptics to it. So it's so that way you know that you are not making any mistake. You just change the value that you want. So I put the example there, and don't forget that we need to go back one step because it gave us an issue the other time that we ran it. And here, don't also forget to change it to the instance ID. Remember, we have our instance ID as EC2, as instance underscore ID. That is the ID that we define here. So we are calling it here. So now this command will stop the EC2 instance. So once the command stop the EC2 instance, we want to also know or pass out some information like instance is stopping. So that way we know that, okay, the instance is actually stopping, so that we know that the code is running. So this command here will stop the EC2 instance if it is running. So if we stop the EC2 instance, then let's write another function that is going to start the EC2 instance. So it's going to be the same thing. I'll just copy the whole of this, copy this, then paste it here and change some information. So instead of stop, it's going to be start instance, and every other thing is going to be the same. And this one, instead of stop, is going to be start instances. Then the output will also going to be instance is starting. So that is what we just need to do. So we have a function that gets the EC2 instance information, whether it is running or not. And once you get the information, it's going to save it inside this current instance state. And once we have it inside this current instance state, we need it later because we're going to use it to check if it is running or not. So now that we have the instance state here, then we have another function here that is going to stop the instance if it is currently running. And this function here is going to start the instance if the instance is stopped. So how do we know the ones to use out of them, whether to stop it or to run it? So we're going to be using an conditional statement, which is called an if statement. So to write an if statement in shell scripting, say if, open your bracket and give it a one space and put this in quotes. And this is another error that we faced on our 7-day Linux training. On the last day here, we are not putting the correct information here. So we're supposed to have a dollar sign before we get the current state of the instance. So what we want to use here is that if the current state of the instance, so we're going to copy this current state of the instance here, So if the current state of the instance is equal to running, don't forget to put this pound sign. This is the mistake we made in one of the, in our class when we did the 7 days Linux class, that we did not put it here, and that is why we are having an error. If you watch that video, so you will see that we have an error that we troubleshoot for some time. So this is the error that we got because we didn't put this pounds on this dollar sign here. So now we said if current instance state is equal to running, then if it is running, what do we want to do? Don't forget to close it. If it is running, then we want to call the function. That means it should stop it. We want to call the stop function, which is stop instances. Stop instance. Then we want to just call the function if it is running. But if if it is not running, then that means it is stopped. So if it is stopped, we want to start it. Just call the start function. Start instances. So this is all the command. Then don't forget to end the if statement with fi. So this is all the function. So we have the code here. If current state is equal to running, then stop it. Else, if it is not running, that means it is stopped, then start it. So if you look at the code from the beginning, we have don't forget, we have the first one, which is the shebang. After the shebang, we get the instance ID of the instance that we want to be working with, and we save it in a variable. And after saving that in a variable, we have I'm going to put a very clear demarcation. A very clear demarcation so that we know where we are currently. So that demarcation here is a function. So just to put some demarcation here. So this first one here is just to get to save the instance ID in a variable. Then this next here is a function that get function that get the information about the instance, if it is running or not. If the instance is running, it's going to save it or not. If it's running or not, it's going to save the response inside this current instance state. Current instance state is going to save it there. So once we get the information about the instance, then we want to pass the information. But before we pass the information, we are writing two functions. The first function is a function that stops an instance if it is running. And the second function is a function that will start an instance if it is stopped. So if you go down, then this is when to call the function. We are now calling the function here, but conditionally. We say if the current state, that is the current state that we get from when we call when we get the information about the instance, this current state. So we say if the current state is equal to running, then we want to stop the instance. But if the current state is stopped, then we want to start the instance. You can also pass some information here to know that, okay, the instance is actually stopped. You can do echo instance is stopped. And here we can do echo instance is started. So this is all we need. I'm going to save this file. Then we can now run this code. But before we run the code, let me bring this down a little bit and go to the instance. So if you look the current state of the instance, it is running. So if I run this code, you can see I'm running the code here. If I run this code and press enter, then it's going to give us information Look at it. It gave us the information about the instance, and guess what? They say the instance is stopping and the instance is stopped. Although we're supposed to write some code, if we can, if this is a real life, I'm going to write some code to delay this stopped, so that if the stopping can take some time, then I'm going to check some parameter. That if I check, I'll have to check the parameter of the instance again. If it is stopped, then that is when I'm going to print out this. But it's fine because this is just a very basic code. So if you go to the instance now, if you refresh, you will see that the instance is stopped. The instance is stopped. Now that the instance is stopped, if you want to start it again, just run the code again, and this time around, it's going to see that the instance is currently stopped and is going to start it. So this is okay. We have a command on the start instances, so we can troubleshoot this. Let's go to the start instance. Let's go to the file again and see what the error is. So you say there is a command, I mean, there's an error on this to start the instance. So if you look at this instance, so where can the error be? We have start instance, we have AWS EC2 start instances, and we provided the instance ID, and we echo that the instance is starting. So let's look at the error, and here we are calling the start. Oh, here, look at it. This is the error here. When we create the function, or when we define the function, is there's no x here, but when we call it, we had x here. So that was the issue. So I'm just going to remove the x, and our code is fine again. So I'm going to save this. So now let's run the code again. We shouldn't have that error again because we corrected, and you can see now that the code runs successfully. So let's go to our instance. Let's refresh. It's going to show us pending. Now look at it. It's showing us pending that the instance is starting. All right. This is a very easy, a very basic code on how to use a how to use an EC2 is how to use an EC2 AWS, how to use an AWS CLI to get the information, to get the state of an instance, and if it is running, you want to stop it, and if it is stopped, you want to start it. This is just a basic how to use CLI and bash scripting function and if statements to get information and to run an automation in an EC2. In real world scenario, one way that you might want to use this kind of code, you may not want to start it, but you may want to stop all the EC2 instance that is running in your development, in your dev environment, because, or in your own personal environment. Maybe if you have some, if you are practicing AWS and you create some instance and you forgot to stop it, so you may run a code that will automatically stop the instance for you. So this code, we just need to use the stop function, and you need to pass the stop function in a lambda function, then trigger it with event bridge. So what it's going to do is that it's going to, at a specific point, at a particular time, the event bridge will run, and when it's run, it's going to trigger the lambda. Then the lambda is going to run the code. So what the lambda code is going to do is first going to check if there is an EC2 instance that is running in your environment, and if it is running, it's going to stop it. You may not want to start it if it is stopped for that particular use case. All right. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it's informative for you. If you like it, please kindly subscribe and give us a thumbs up and give us a notification and click on the notification bell. Thank you.